Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Mazel Tov to the Shapiro family. We're so grateful to have their family and friends here on this Shabbat, and very excited for tomorrow, for all the great stuff he's going to do, and it's going to be wonderful. So Mazel Tov to you all. So this past week, I have been singing a lot of the same tune in preparation for this Parsha. With an upbeat tune and happy lyrics, you'd think the song was about a fun little boat trip on a sunny day. It goes like this. Rise and shine and give God your glory, glory. Rise and shine and give God your glory, glory. Rise and shine and give God your glory, glory. Children of the Lord. Yeah, you know it. Very good. So the song goes on to speak about our Parshat, Noach, with God telling Noah to build him an arky, made out of hickory barky. For the record, it was actually made out of gopher wood, but that's not as good a rhyme, I don't think. And it ends with the sun coming up and drying up the landy, and everything being, quote, fine and dandy. While Noach is often thought of as a Torah story perfectly geared towards young kids, just look at the Noah mural in our IPS wing of the shul. The truth is that the Noach story is actually a good deal darker. What the fun song leaves out is perhaps a stanza, God saw the whole world was filled with so much sin. God saw the whole world was filled with so much sin. Decided he must do them in. Everyone's gonna die. A little darker. No longer the fun-loving song that we sing in IPRS, is it? Now, the truth about the Noah story is that even as Noach finds favor in God's eyes and saves all species of mammals on earth, in its essence, the story of Noah is a tragedy. It's the story of the failure of God's hopes and dreams for humanity and for the entire world God created. At the end of last week's Parsha, God regretted creating humanity and indeed all creatures on land. And at the end of this Parsha, when Noach and his family leave the ark, God promises never to destroy humanity again, not because God feels bad about doing so, but because God realizes that the impulse of humanity is evil from its youth. Essentially saying that God would have to keep on flooding the earth over and over again to keep up with our injustice and our immorality. Inspiring stuff. Attempt at a joke. The adult version of the Parsha, then, for me, is about how to move forward after crisis and destruction. It must have been quite traumatic for Noah and his family to leave the ark and enter into a world where everyone else they've ever known is gone forever. How lonely and how quiet it must have felt to be alone on earth, even if you have your family by your side, like landing on a foreign planet, except with animals. And yet Noah, as he emerges from the ark, manages not to weep endlessly in despair, which he'd have every right to do, but rather what he does is surprising. He decides to build an altar and make sacrifices to God for saving him and his family. In the moment where he'd be most justified in being angry, scared, disoriented, traumatized, and depressed, he instead chooses to focus on gratitude, on the gift of life he and his family have been granted and the opportunity to start again. As I read this story, surprisingly, I think about my Bubby and Zeta, survivors of the Shoah, who lost nearly all of their family to the cruelty of the Nazis. I think about the trauma of what it is to lose an entire world, to have lost so many people they loved and who loved them. I think about their struggles with God, with the injustice of the world, and with their own mental health. But I also marvel at the lives they built out of such suffering. I marveled that they had the strength not just to begin again, to get married, to raise a family, but to make sure to raise them with a strong Jewish upbringing, to take their kids to synagogue, to educate them Jewishly, to teach them to be proud of who they are. They had every right to abandon the tradition and opt for a future without God, without Judaism. But they chose a different path. They doubled down on their identity. They chose to pass on the tradition which gratefully was passed down to me. I do not take that for granted. My friends, right after I give this Devar Torah, I'm going to be heading to a Shabbat dinner of Holocaust survivors and their descendants organized by our local Holocaust Memorial Museum. As a grandson of survivors, it was important to me to be there so I can honor my family killed and as well as my grandparents who survived. Their courage to persist in living good lives and passing on Judaism to the next generation, despite all the odds, is a courage we all could use in these troubled times. A gathering like this is a reminder of how we carry on a legacy like that, understanding how dear Judaism is to us and how important it is to make sure no human beings ever experience anything like the Shoah again. We must have courage, like Noach, to approach rebuilding our lives after upheaval with gratitude for what is really important and for the gift of life, but also to make sure that this world is one where everyone can thrive and feel safe. So perhaps Noach is a little more serious a story than we usually give it credit for. But it also brings into new light the meaning of the chorus of the song that I was referencing, that previously seemed to feel unrelated to this story. Rise and shine and give God your glory. That is the essence of what Noach teaches us. Life is a gift. Upheavals and suffering are inevitable. The important thing is to have the strength to continue with thankfulness for whatever goodness we are given. The important thing is to fulfill the promise that such terrible things can never happen again. If we do that, we truly reflect the divine. We become children of the Lord. Shabbat Shalom.